Hello chess friends and welcome to your Art of Chess channel and welcome to a spectacular game that I prepared for you today. Welcome to an amazing gameplay by Alexandria against the top engine Stockfish 17 in an amazing Fischer Defence of the King's Gambit Accepted. And the reason why I'm showing you a King's Gambit Accepted game is that a couple of days ago I wrote a post in which I've asked you to really participate actively in our decision which opening should be played by Stockfish 17, and the most votes that I got is actually the King's Gambit. You have also voted many times for the Smith-Mora Gambit. I've written it down, and also for let me see, also for the Nimzo Indian Defense with the black pieces. So I think these are great choices. The Smith-Mora Gambit is very hard to handle. I found actually two great games played by Stockfish in the Smith-Mora Gambit, also with the black pieces, a couple of great games of course of the Nimzo Indian Defense. So if you want to see maybe some great games played by Stockfish in your favorite openings, please write in the comment section below. I'll try to do as much as I can. I think the King's Gambit as a choice is really great. You appreciate really the romantic era of chess. I cannot really wait to show this one, because this game, this King's Gambit Accepted by black here by Stockfish was so dynamic, was so crazy, again with spectacular tactics all over the board. So this was your choice. Enjoy now in a beautiful gameplay by Stockfish 17. So with white, Alexandria opened with the move e4. We have e5 by the fish, and now comes the King's Gambit with the move f4. Stockfish accepts now the challenge with e takes f4. We have now the standard King's Gambit Accepted, and now from knight to f3, Stockfish plays now a very interesting defense, the so-called Fischer Defence, named of course after the top grandmaster and the legend of the sport Bobby Fischer. The idea about this move is, I think, very progressive, because first of all, what this move is doing is keeping here the light square diagonal very active for the bishop, so the bishop can be included into the game. Usually white of course is trying to have a powerful central control with the move d4, and then after bishop to g4 you are attacking maybe immediately the knight on f3 that is controlling the d6 square. Here Alexandria continues, I think, with the most progressive plan. Again, plays now very powerful bishop to c4, attacks now simply the f7 weakness, and in some lines also with the support of the knight this could be then a weak square in black's camp. Stockfish continues with h6, prevents this move immediately, and now in my opinion there are two good choices for white. Black in any of these lines of the King's Gambit Accepted should be already better, so white has to now show his cards. White has to really prove its point here in the King's Gambit, which is of course a risky opening. I would not suggest you of course to play the King's Gambit with the white pieces, but we've seen it also in top grandmaster level. Sometimes the top grandmasters are even trying to surprise their opponent with the King's Gambit. Vasily Ivanchuk is one of the great players who's trying it. Also h6 is preventing knight to g5 immediately, and you could maybe try here a progressive plan with h4 preventing this idea. But then, as I said, this Fischer Defence is really good because you have already a great competition for the g4 square, and now after a couple more moves, I don't know, maybe white will develop with knight to c3. You're trying here knight to c6. You still of course keep this very active bishop here d4, and then with knight to h5 you can still protect your pawn on f4 that you have gained of course in this gambit line. So again, I'm not saying that black is completely winning or something, but this is a setup that you want to get then after a couple more moves. So that's why here after move h6 by Stockfish, Alexandria first of all plays the calm kingside castling, and now we have g5 here by Stockfish. Stockfish supports now the pawn on f4, and again, let's see options. If you play now this move d4 too early, if you play it now too aggressively, then bishop to g7 puts more pressure against his pawn, and I wanted to demonstrate you the power really of the Fischer Defence. After something like g3 you can immediately go with g4. Then you see the issue is that the d4 pawn is also hanging here, so that's why white has to be careful. After move here g5 that Stockfish played, Alexandria prepares now here the move d4 in a different way. We have seen that the d4 was a vulnerable square then in white's camp, but this move c3 is also a very nice idea, because you can play then queen to b3 and hit simply the pawn on f7. We have now knight to c6 by the fish, d4, knight to f6, and now comes this idea with queen to b3. And surprisingly, believe me or not, in chess history, at least I'm seeing only games in the database where queen to e7 has been played. Stockfish doesn't like this move. Again, Stockfish is saying black is much better. Black should be, of course, winning this game. But here Stockfish in move let me see, I8 already plays the theoretical novelty with the move queen to d7. So Stockfish improves now the well-known theory of the Fischer defense of the king's gambit accept. And when we watch now the harder, I think this move queen to d7 makes perfect sense, because if you play queen to e7, I'm not saying you're losing or something, but you're lining up the queen where already the king is. And maybe in some lines like queen to c2, you're protecting the pawn, it seems, so that you could maybe go for the e4 pawn, but then with d5, knight to d8, look at this, rook to e1, an unpleasant game. It's a game that I think you're trying to avoid, to go in such a tactical battle. This whole approach with queen to d7 is more solid because it's not allowing here white to immediately attack the position. For instance, you try e5, it doesn't matter, d takes e5, d takes e5, then knight to g4, knight to g4, and you keep an eye against this pawn. If you try rook to e1, then bishop to c5, very dangerous. So white cannot easily just start to push the pawns in the center of the board. Black has also here, I would say, a decent activity. So that's why after queen to d7, Alexandria tried queen to c2, connected now the queen to the pawn. But Stockfish's idea is, of course, not to put more pressure against this pawn on e4, because you don't want to open now files. You want to somehow secure the king by castling. You want to improve, first of all of your pieces, because white has really this dominant position in the center of the board. And that's exactly what Stockfish is doing. Bishop to g7. Let's see now again options. Can white break and enter here in the center of the board? If d5 happens, that's also the beauty about this move queen to d7. In this previous queen to e7 line, you wouldn't have then this move, a knight to e7. You see, the queen takes also natural score for the knight here. If, for instance, black get challenged in this way, you can always pick up the pawn like this, and then after something like e take d6, queen to d6 here, black is much better. The computer evaluation is almost +4 in black's favor, so it's not working. Even instead of d5, even e5 is again not working because of the similar tactical problems. We'll simply attack this pawn further, and now even if you attack the queen through the d file, this pawn is weak. This pawn will be taken for sure after a couple more moves, so nothing gained, I would say, here for white. So I think it's very important to clear now every potential solution by white, because this is a position that you could get if you, of course, apply this amazing Stockfish method against the king's gambit opening. So we have now bishop to g7. Alexandria continues with normal development. Stockfish continues now with kingside castling, and so far I would say a good really line by black, because the only piece maybe that is somehow bad is, of course, the bishop on c8. Every other piece, we have to say, by black is perfectly fine. The bishop is well placed, the knights are on natural squares, you have this expansion on the king side. The only piece, as we mentioned, is the light square bishop that needs some kind of improvement, but usually in the king's gambit, I think I've seen it also that you can get even a worse position of your pieces. So I think it's a great compensation that you have here. White doesn't have immediately attacking chances, and here Alexandria finally prepares the move e5 with the move rook to e1. Stockfish continues with knight to e7. a4, we have now c5. Great move again by Stockfish, simply challenging the center. Stockfish doesn't tolerate any activity by white here, and now the real fun starts. So here Alexandria breaks and enters with the move e5. D takes e5. We have the d takes e5, and now knight to d5. The move knight to e7 was also very important, because now black has a great grip around the square d5. The queen is protecting the square, the knight is protecting the square, and so far a good defensive structure by Stockfish. Alexandria continues now with a great move, knight to e4, queen to c6 by the fish, and now bishop to b5, queen to c7. We have bishop to c4, bishop to g4, and that's the beauty, I would say, here. Now finally, when the light square bishop is coming into the game, look at this, black's pieces are really on good squares all over the place. We have still this extra pawn, we have also clear target, the weak pawn on e5. Now it becomes really a beautiful and really here, I would say, natural game for black. After bishop to g4, knight to d6. Alexandria uses now this momentum, has now this beautiful score for the knight, and now rook from a to d8. We have now queen to e4, and now Stockfish plays a brilliant idea. Bishop takes f3. Gives up now the bishop for knight, which seems maybe like a risky choice, that you shouldn't do it because you have several maybe light score problems. But the issue is that the queen cannot pick up here this bishop on f3, because of bishop to e5. We'll simply take it, and even if something like, I don't know, rook to e5 happens, queen to d6 grabs another pawn here. In this tactical sequence, black gained an extra pawn, and now we can, I think, protect everything here. We'll play b6, maybe the knight to f6, but I think black will survive this attack for sure. Even if, I don't know, instead of rook to e5 here, knight to b7 first happens, maybe you're trying to grab another pawn, then we pick it, first of all, play knight to b6, and you can even give up maybe here the rook, but then knight takes c4. Look at this, the knight doesn't have any more escape squares. You can maybe try knight to b7, but then bishop to g7. It's a calm game. This square is taken with this, I don't know, active knight to f5, knight to e3 could happen. So I'm not seeing here a good continuation anymore for white. So that's why after bishop to f3, Alexandria was forced to play g takes f3, and this move does several things. First of all, it weakens further the light squares in front of white's camp, and now Stockfish uses this momentum and plays now a brilliant but a risky, I'm not sure how many of us would even dare or would even consider this move. Stockfish plays now the move bishop to e5. In the beginning, it seems like it's the same tactic like previously. You will get here this knight on d6, but Alexandria has now this in-between knight to b5 attack against the queen. Stockfish has now to drop back, and now Alexandria takes out now here the bishop on e5. Let's see what happens if you play knight takes a7 first instead of queen to e5. Then look at this. The issue is then this idea, queen to h3. You can now pick up maybe here the piece on e5, but now actually black takes over. Black is now on the attacking side. The issue for black is that this bishop never participated in the game because of this very progressive pawn on f4. And now black attacks. White has to step back. Now we attack further the f3 square. You have to now cover it. Look at this. Black is concluding now this other pieces into the game. You have to step back. Now look at this, knight to e3, bishop to e3, rook takes e3. This is a weakness. I'm not sure how black is going to defend now this position. Pardon me, white is going to defend this position anymore. This is simply too dangerous. This knight is out of game, so it's game over simply here for white. So that's why for queen to c8, Alexandria grabs now the piece, and it seems so that something went wrong here for black. Black lost now a minor piece, but Stockfish had everything under control. First of all, knight to g6, kicking away the queen, now attacking the bishop. We have now bishop to b3, rook to e8. Black keeps simply the attacking flow. White never connected the rooks here. So far, Alexandria has to now step back. Stockfish takes, Alexandria takes, and now comes again a similar tactical idea like we have seen also in the previous line. Knight to h4, hitting simply the weakness on f3, queen to f1. Look how passive now white pieces are all over the place, and Stockfish of course plays a6, kicks away the knight, but now a counter-attack here by Alexandria. Stockfish takes, Alexandria takes, but now c4. After bishop to c2, we have to say it, okay, white continues the game with the bishop pair, but it's not such a brilliant bishop pair. The bishop, especially on c1, is still out of game. This bishop is not competing so much in the game because the queen cannot build maybe a battery here, so the queen is now too passive, and Stockfish continues now with the brilliant queen to c6. Great move, attacking now the pawn. What should you do if you try here? Maybe, I don't know, something like bishop to e4, then queen to b6 comes with the check. You have to now step back with your king, and now with f5 again the bishop would be kicked away. Now you try again here, queen to c6, and after something like, I don't know, b3, we can pick up here the pawn, and the position is suddenly collapsing here for white. So this is not working. So therefore queen to c6, that's why Alexandria tried to step back. Stockfish grabs now simply another pawn. We have now queen to g2, trying of course to play bishop to f4 because you couldn't take then because of the queen activity. So that's why king to f8, getting out of the g file mess, h4, and now queen to d5. We have now bishop to f4. Here Alexandria had enough of it because the bishop couldn't really participate in the game. Even in some lines, I think we can try, I don't know, knight to h4, trading off even the queens. But now look at this. If that happens, black would have then 4 pawns storming here against White's king, so this is again a messed up game. So that's why here Alexandria sacrificed now the piece back just in order to reach some kind of an end game. Here rook to f1, we have now knight to e5, which was, I would say, the correct choice here by the fish. Knight to h4 is also possible, but it's slightly more riskier because after a couple of trades of queens, then the rook is coming in, then you have to play a strange, I would say, move rook to h5. Still, as I mentioned, black is better, but maybe you don't want to have this rook so overloaded to the defense of the knight. So that's why a better choice is to play knight to e5 like the fish did. We have now queen to d5, rook takes d5, and now bishop to e4, rook to d2, and now Alexandra grabs a pawn. But now Stockfish plays again the correct move. Knight to d7. This pawn is very, very important to be taken, because if this pawn starts to march, then it could be even a winning game for white. So that's why bishop to c6. Stockfish grabs now this one. Alexandra grabs now the pawn on b5, but now Stockfish comes with the rook into the game. Rook takes b2, comes again with a new threat against the bishop. Bishop has to drop back, and now Stockfish simply goes also for the c3 pawn. Alexandra takes, Stockfish takes, king to g2, and of course rook to b3, liberating now the path for the pawn. Rook to f5, Stockfish simply pushes the pawn further, rook to c5, and now king to e7, including now, of course, the king into the game. Bishop drops back, Stockfish attacks the rook. We have now a new attack by the rook, and now Stockfish centralizes the king, supports now, of course, the further progress of the pawn on the c file. We have now king to f2. Even if you try, I don't know, to pick up this pawn, it's not so dangerous, because after rook to b2, you have to step back. We simply push the pawn. You're trying again to go back, but now the clear tactical idea is here to play king to d4 and then knight to c4 to lock the attack by the rook against the pawn. So you would be forced pretty much to play bishop to e2 to somehow cover the square, but still it's not working because of a check. And then when the rook is covering the c file, this is a position that white can resign immediately. So here after king to e5, that's why king to f2, Stockfish pushes now this pawn further, bishop to d1, and now rook to b2. First a check, Alexandra has to step back, and now knight to d5. This pawn is well protected now. Nothing can be done here against this progress of the pawn. Rook to c5. Stockfish, of course, attacks now the rook. Rook drops back, and now great move here by the fish, simply improving further the activity of this very active king. The only move that prolongs the game here for white is rook to d8, and now king to c4. Alexandra delivers a new check, and now Stockfish goes with king to d4. And now the issue for white is here that in order to stay on the c file, you have to play now suddenly move is somehow maybe to play, I don't know, rook to c6, and then I don't know, knight to e3 can happen. We attack the piece, you maybe attack this king again, but now king to e5 comes with a threat against the king. You have to step back, and now when this piece is taken, this simply game over. You can maybe just prolong the game, but now look at this, the winning idea is this one. We simply get the king closer here on c3, and after rook to b1, it's of course again completely winning endgame here for black. So that's why after rook king to d4, rook to f8 has been played in order to attack this pawn, but now Stockfish simply pushed the pawn further, gained now piece, had now of course completely winning endgame. Stockfish goes behind this one, picks up now this one, simply stays active with the rook, and now delivers a new check. Even if you try here, I don't know, king to g4 in this line, then knight to f6 is a great move, attacking against the king and still protection of the rook. You have to step back, so this is not working. So that's why after rook to h5, Alexandra tried to play like this, but in any of these lines, I think we can agree this is game over. Stockfish allowed now. Sorry, I just pushed it too far away, so let's go back. I just misclicked. So after this check, Alexandra went here, Stockfish goes behind, allows here even Alexandria to pick up the pawn, but now Stockfish goes into no position and threatens immediate checkmate. So Alexandra goes like this, and now again a new checkmate threat. Really nice rook endgame pattern. Now Alexandra had to step back, Stockfish delivers a check, and now grabs the pawn, and after a couple more moves in this particular position, Alexandra resigns. So great game by Stockfish 17 in the Fischer Defence of the King's Gambit Accepted. I would say really an instructive game, because this could be maybe your whole method in order to beat the King's Gambit opening. I think it's a very, very interesting line, a very progressive line, which keeps you in the game, which keeps also many pieces on the board. It is somehow a tactical approach. You have to, of course, be well prepared in tactics, but I think it's an interesting defense, playable for sure, playable in top grandmaster level. You see also playable in an AI level. So in my opinion, really, really nice method to destroy, to dismantle, to beat the King's Gambit. Accepted. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. As I mentioned, if you want to see some great games played by Stockfish 17 in some other openings, please write it down in the comment section, or also you can write it in the post that we have published a couple of days ago. So far, it was a great choice. We have seen a beautiful romantic era opening, and if you want to see some other beautiful, sharp, attacking, aggressive, really great tactical games like this, check out our Come to Chess Games Played by Computer series. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.